Hello Mets fans, welcome back to the channel, and today we will be taking a look at two-star players that we have previously discussed here in the channel and their possible connection to the New York Mets, in which there has been plenty with both of them. But now we're going to be breaking down the reality as to which player would be best fit in Queens between these two-star infielders, and what are all the pros and cons to acquiring either one of them, leading up to which one truly makes most sense for the New York Mets going into the 2021 season and beyond. And as always guys, make sure you stay all the way until the end video, find all the deets and all my thoughts on the front between these two stars, and also make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, share this video with your friends if you guys end up enjoying this kind of Mets content and want to see more great Mets content like this going forward. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Alright Mets fans, so we know the story by now, right? Over the past week or so, I've touched on two star players, that being Nolan Arenado and Francisco Lindor. The matter is, these are two stars that would easily help propel the Mets to not just being playoff contenders, but ultimately when it comes to being World Series contenders, hopefully sooner than later. But they have to do a lot of things in order to get there besides just making one big move. They need to make multiple moves. Steve Cohen has made note of that, Sandy Alderson, Jared Porter, everyone in the upper management has made note that this is not just a one type move off season. A lot of holes need to be addressed, and that would bring a lot of question marks as to if the Mets do in fact make a deal for either one of these stars. It would take a hefty cost for the most part, at least. But which of these two makes most sense for the New York Mets, shall we? And make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always guys, I love this community so much. But between Francisco Lindor and Nolan Arenado, there's a couple things to take into account. One, we all know the story. Lindor is a younger player between the two. He's at least 2 years younger, to be in fact, because Lindor is around 27 years of age when Arenado is around 29. And then when we look at the contracts, these are another more obvious thing. When you have Nolan Arenado, his contract currently is still at 6 years, $199 million, making over $30 million per year. That's insane. And then when you get a Francisco Lindor, he's making around $25 million for his 2021 season before he hits free agency, which is more than likely. And that is exactly why the Indians are trying to deal him. And with the Colorado Rockies, they're trying to deal Arenado mainly because they want to keep Trevor Story long term, and they simply can't afford both players on a big contract. That's just the reality of it, with them being more smaller market type clubs. So because of this, Mets are in a prime spot to take full advantage of the situation should they go for it. They've been connected to both players, and for good reason. Both these guys have some of the best gloves in all the infield. Nolan Arenado has been the best third baseman in baseball for basically as long as he has been in the league, at least over these 5+ seasons, definitely. And then you have Francisco Lindor, who's one of the best shortstops in the game today, and both these guys know how to hit as well. Lindor being a switch hitter, and Arenado not being a switch hitter, but just being so consistent, even though, yes, I know he's playing in cores, take into account he's just such a consistent hitter, no less. And I think that would transition well with any team that he would be dealt to, whether it's the Mets or not, or if at all for that matter. But both these guys have an amazing glove, an amazing bat, and bring so much versatility to their game as it is that would be the ultimate stars for the Mets should the Mets trade for either one of them. So the bigger question is, which one makes most sense for the Mets? Because when we look at the type of haul that the Mets would have to give up, odds are they would probably have to give up around the same, if not more significant of a haul for one player over the other. It's kind of hard to weigh the two if you ask me, but because of Nolan Arenado's massive contract, there's a part of me that feels that the Mets can probably get a trade done that's not as difficult than say the Francisco Lindor deal, because Lindor still having just a year on his contract, basically being a rental. I understand that, but him being younger and still having controllability on his side, I think that would bode well for the Mets, and one, locking him up long term right away, but two, having to give up a fairly decent haul. We're talking at least a guy of Ahmad Rosario or Andres Jimenez, or one of their shortstop prospects for the Mets, one of their better ones. And then you're looking at other guys like Brandon Nimmo would make a lot of sense, possibly JD Davis, one of those two, as we've touched on here on the channel, and maybe a pitching prospect, but I'm hoping that that wouldn't be the case. But guys like Josh Wolf, among others, come to mind. So it makes you wonder just how much flexibility the Cleveland Indians have in this type of situation. Versus when we get onto the Arenado front, what would make more sense for him per se, because of that massive contract, the Mets would probably have to part ways with that Cano contract as well, assuming the Rockies can handle that, knowing that there's a couple years left and isn't nearly to the degree that is with Arenado's deal. And that's something that I would assume the Rockies would be able to part ways with, knowing that they can get rid of Arenado and still get not just Cano, but also get a significant prospect possibly, or it's just some roster players. Again, JD Davis, Brandon Nimmo, these guys are going to be discussed discussions left and right, for instance, because of just how susceptible they are to being dealt. Dom Smith could be thrown there as a possibility. Not that they all would be. I'm just saying these are names that are more than likely to be dealt in any significant trade that the Mets have in this 2020 MLB offseason and soon to be 2021 MLB offseason, right? But still, it's very interesting looking at these two players because they're both Gold Gloves, they're both Silver Sluggers, and they have both been consistent and consecutive All-Stars in their career, respectively, both in the AL and in the NL. So when you look at that huge, massive contract with Nolan Arenado, it could make Mets fans want to push away from that, knowing that Arenado is also coming off of a fairly down year in the shortened 2020 season. Nothing too significant. He racked up just around 8 home runs and 26 RBIs for a 253 batting average. Not bad numbers at all. When it comes to average, things were a little bit down. Arenado was dealing with some injuries, I believe, but outside of that, he's been so consistent. This guy is always in the lineup as well, and same thing with Lindor. That's what I love about these two. While Lindor is a little bit older and maybe he has, so to speak, hit his peak in his career, I expect him to be consistent for at least another 3 years, I would say, before he really starts to fall off. And then when you have Lindor, he is still right in the prime of his career, making it a lot more appealing. So for me personally, guys, I'm sure many of you would agree, I would probably have to go with a guy like Francisco Lindor over Nolan Arenado, and I think you guys would agree, and I think the Mets management overall would probably agree, as long as that they can land them on the right price. Because again, the Mets in this new regime, they do not want to give up top prospects. We have touched on that endlessly here on the channel, but the matter is that if a true opportunity presents itself, which it has, because there's been reports of both the Rockies and Cleveland showing interest in wanting to pursue a deal with the Mets in order to get rid of their top stars because they simply can't afford them, and that, you know, the Mets, one, can handle the contracts, and two, have assets that they are intrigued by. So because of that reason, all of that, I would still want Lindor personally, as I would be more than happy with either one, but the Mets would have a lot more flexibility, at least for this offseason, because when you look at Lindor, he's going to be making around 25 mil for one more year, then he's a free agent. The Mets would trade him, lock him in for an extension right away, and it would be a massive deal. It would be awfully reminiscent of the Mookie Betts trade a year ago between the Red Sox and the Dodgers, the type of deal possibly, and the type of contract. We are looking at upwards of a 10-year contract. It would be huge with the Mets, but that's what you have to do in order to keep a guy of Francisco Lindor's caliber. I fully assume that Francisco Lindor would definitely want to stay with the Mets long term, given the culture change that they have right now, wanting to be consistent as winners, not just in the short term, but long term. It's really like the new Yankees in that sense, but we shouldn't even compare them, because the Mets are the Mets and the Yankees are the Yankees. They're two totally different teams that are ran completely different, and now we'll see just how much the Mets will thrive in this new regime, and I'm ecstatic for it. But Francisco Lindor at shortstop in that infield would be phenomenal, absolutely amazing, Mr. Smile himself. And yes, you would have to give up some significant pieces for him, but I am under the belief that because of the fact that the Indians are still cornered right now when it comes to trying to get rid of Lindor, they want to do it obviously before that contract is up and would like to do it before the season starts. They may have to part ways with him and a deal again like the Betts, Dodgers, and Red Sox deal, where it's fairly lopsided, if you ask me, where the Dodgers definitely won that trade looking back, and this would be a situation where the Mets would probably win that trade fairly easily, outside of giving away maybe one prospect that the Mets we're coveting for the most part. Only time will tell, but I'm really curious to know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. Who would you prefer to see the Mets land in a blockbuster trade this offseason, if any? Would it be a guy of Nolan Arenado's caliber, or would it be a guy of Francisco Lindor's caliber? Again, both amazing players, and look, Arenado makes so much sense, especially with that gaping hole in third base, not having a pure third baseman currently for the Mets, outside of moving guys around between having JD Davis there, Jeff McNeil there at times, Andres Gimenez. They don't have a pure third baseman, and that is exactly what Arenado would bring. So that would be a huge upside in so many aspects, and I would be happy with either one. But again, if I had to pick between the two, one that I think makes most sense for the Mets, both short term and long term, with its current vision under their new regime led by Sandy Alderson, Uncle Stevie Cohen, and Jared Porter, and Zach Scott, I have to go with Mr. Smile himself and Francisco Lindor. So as always, guys, thank you all again for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you ended up enjoying this kind of Mets content, please hit that like button, subscribe, all those great things. Share this video with your friends, really mean a lot. And also, guys, stay tuned. I will be live streaming today around 6:45 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, talking about the Mets and their free agency plans, and doing a Q&A with all you lovely fellow Mets fans. I cannot wait to get in it. I want to grow this community more. I've been wanting to live stream for quite some time here on the channel to talk to you guys more individually, hear yourself out, your thoughts on free agency. What players do you think the Mets are going to land in free agency? What guys I think are definitely on the list for the Mets to land in free agency, and when, and everything in between. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going going to be happening later today, so make sure to check that out if you guys are in fact interested. But thank you all again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you all real soon.